There. Good. Cool. Good. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate you taking the time out to um, talk to me and be kind of part of this. It's fun. You're like you're number two. Did you get a chance to listen to the one with
I
Maria?
I was starting to listen to it this morning. Yeah, I wanted
Yeah.
to finish what I was doing, and so I did that. And anyway,
Yeah.
but I didn't
Yeah.
finish it, but I got kind of the beginning is what I
Good.
got.
Yeah. So you kind of heard what we talked about as far as like, what the idea is here with this whole thing. And
Right.
yeah. And I just want to I just really wanted to talk to you just because I've known you for so long,
Yeah.
but like
You were a little
you're just
girl.
since I
You
was a
were a little
little girl.
girl when I first
Yeah.
met you.
Yeah,
You
I
were.
was. Yeah, yeah. And and you're always like this steady presence, but you're always like in the background, you know, and you're always the person that's like working their tail end off. Like I don't know when you rest really, because what everybody's like doing all the doing things, and you're just like I said, you're just this constant presence, and but you're always working, you're always kind of, and we all know the truth, Karlene, that you're kind of holding that whole place together. So so
I'm not sure how well it's getting held together right now, but that's okay.
yeah. Well, I mean,
I kind of backed off. So
right. Yeah. So you've just always been somebody that I've always just really admired for you're like you have this real quiet strength about you that I've always just found impressive, and yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of always wanted to just talk to you and sort of document, this, because we haven't had, I mean, we've sat down and chatted like at the cabin and here and there, but I don't think you and I have ever sat down, just you and I. Like it's always
no, we
been,
haven't.
Steve's always there, the kids are always there, something's always going on. So
Yeah.
I think this is really special to me, and I just can't even tell you enough how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, I will admit, when you asked me, I thought about it and I go, I thought, I don't know if you really know who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I do, but I don't think maybe you don't want to know. I mean, I don't not want to know, but it's not going to be what you think or something. And Brandy, she was sitting there and she was just looking at me smiling, and I didn't say anything. So then I went and thought about it a while, and I thought, no, I think I need to do this. And she knew I needed to do this to begin with, but she never said a word. But
Bless her heart. I love
and she
her.
hasn't said anything. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so I did. But I questioned it at first because, you know, I don't know why, but I did.
Yeah. Well, I know when I asked you, you were like, you want to talk to me? What?
Yeah.
And I think that's the big idea here is like, yeah, I hate to admit I've known you all these years, but I really don't fully know who you are. Like I think I kind of do. I think I kind of know you. Like I feel like I know you enough to trust the kind of person that you are, you know. But I don't, I mean, that's why I was like, I need to talk to Karlene. Like I need to get deeper and down deeper and kind of really get to know who she is, and like I said, your story. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, until I sat down and did this, well, what I've put at the end, I didn't really even realize it, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
mean, I, I'm not going to say the end to be before the beginning. So,
Yeah. Well, so you told me you had some stuff kind of written down, like you've been thinking about what you wanted to say. And so if you have an idea, like
well, you said
just
you
dive
want to
right
know
in.
about the life, right? Kind
Yeah,
of.
I
And
just
so,
kind of want to hear your story, whatever that means to you.
okay. All right. So I just asked myself when I did this, where do I begin? And I think to really understand where my life came from and where it went, you have to know the whole gist. I mean, you have to see the complete circle, not just little bits here and there. And so I have very few memories of my childhood. I honestly do. Most people, a lot of people can remember what they did and all these little things, but I don't really have many. And I think part of it is because, see, I was the firstborn, and then I had a sister 2 years after me, and the umbilical cord was around her neck when she was born, and she is in Lakeland Village. And I think my mom put her in there when she was 3. But she can't talk, she can't walk, anything. She's just in a wheelchair. There's a word for it, but I don't remember. But anyway, and then my mom went through 2 miscarriages, or well, they were born, they buried them, so they must have been old enough to, have. Anyway, I know there's 2 headstones up there. And then she had a son who was Mark. Well, I know you know Mark, my brother, and he was 3 months premature. So, so basically, he wasn't fully developed, and so he had some handicaps. And then a year later, she was pregnant again, and she had my sister Glenda, who was fine until she was about 9, I think. And then she found out she was a juvenile diabetic. So then they're working with her, with her diabetes, and she's a little kid, not very old. And anyway, so I was kind of a loner, more or less. So my dad is the one who, I wouldn't say he raised me, but he was the one that had the most influence on me, because my mom was, I mean, she couldn't do anything. And I know she told me once that she said that I'd come home from school and she'd have a big pile of diapers on the kitchen table, and that was my job, to fold all these diapers, because she had all these kids in diapers. Like, okay. But most of my childhood was I felt like I was a loner, and most of it was raised on a horse. The horses raised me. I mean, I'd get on the horse and away I'd go. I was outdoors. I was very seldom inside. I'm an outdoor person, and that's how I've been. Anyway, so then when I went through high school, I stayed active in sports, and I was always on the go. I had to do something. And then I went to college. I graduated in 1973. And that June, I got married. So, bingo.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that May and that thing is, I made my own wedding dress. I was finishing college, made my own wedding dress, made the dresses for the bridesmaid, and even made Steve's jacket and my dad's jacket. How I did that, I don't know.
Wow.
I honestly don't, but I did. And then I had a class, a really hard class, and I got an A in that, and which was pretty kind of unheard of, really. So anyway, I've always been busy. I've always, so because that was, and then I got married, and then I had the kids. But what influences, like I said, am I talking too fast?
No,
I do tend to talk fast. So
you're good.
Okay. I think my dad was the greatest influence in my life, for most of it, up until he passed. He died in 1988 on Groundhog's Day.
Oh,
I know. Anyway, I really highly felt his opinion was very important, and he spoiled me, but I never really looked at that as being important, getting what I wanted. I liked his opinion on things. I always wanted to wonder what he thought, and honesty was one of his. He was honest. He was a self-made man. He was a logger, and he took that money that he made as a logger and bought the property down here in Swell Willow Basin where we live. And then he also had 3 bands of sheep when he was logging, and there's 1,000 head of sheep in each band. So
oh,
he had
wow.
I know. So that is one memory I remember, is coming down here in the basin where he had his lambing camp and being with the little lambs and feeding them and doing all that kind of stuff, that fun stuff, you know. So when I remember in my childhood, it was usually fun, but and then we'd go up in the mountains because he'd have a pack, a herder. He'd hire somebody, and usually they came from Spain. He'd find them in Yakima, and they'd work summers for him. And then the herder would take the sheep through the mountains above our house there. And then he'd have a packer who he would move the tent and do the cooking and stuff. Well, as a kid, then I got to go up and see, you know, be with them, not stay with them, but dad would go up and, you know, do stuff with them. And so I'd get to do all that too. So that was always fun. So, I mean, I remember my childhood as being fun, even though my mom was walking through a lot of hard stuff. I didn't pick it up, I guess, until afterwards. I realized how hard it must have been on her. So then, so I moved here. Steve and I got married in 1973, and we moved back to the ranch in 75. Well, my dad did something, or said something, I guess it should say, that set a precedence. Because remember, I said I highly evaluated his opinion. I was dating an architect, going to be an architect, and my dad hired him to drive water truck one summer. Well, anyway, when I went back to school, I don't know, for some reason I was in the bedroom talking to him, and he says, you know, I'm really contemplating selling the ranch because you're not coming back. You're going to move on your life, you know, because I was dating this architect. And so I think I'll think I'm going to contemplate on selling the ranch. And that controlled my life. Those words controlled my life. I said, I'm not. I'm gonna, no way, Jose. That's
Enter Steve.
Right. And so my choices changed, basically. You know.
Yeah.
And that kind of set a precedence in my life, not only to come back want to come back here, but also it controlled my decisions I made, all, you know, especially after he passed, to make sure it didn't go under, so to speak. So yeah, that was kind of a turning point. It was when he died, it was a big, it was devastating to me, because then now I had to make decisions, and I felt like I had to honor his wishes to keep the ranch going. And I don't know if that was his or not, you know, but and it wasn't a problem per se, but you got to realize, I had 4 kids. Steve had a daughter prior to our marriage who was 12 years older than my youngest, but I had 4 kids when my dad died, and they were 6, 8, 10, and 12. And Nick, who was 18. Yeah. And so I helped my husband run the cows, work the cows, move the cows, do everything we could, you know, calve out the cows, everything. I did it all.
And then you came home and made dinner for 4 kids.
And then I had to come home and take care of the kids.
Right.
And then exactly. And then my dad, what he did is, when he sold the sheep and he sold the logging outfit, he put in hay. So we had circles of hay down here. So I did that too. I baled hay, I raked hay, I even plowed the ground, which that was not fun. You come back out of there looking, you were totally black with dirt. Not fun. Anyway, I did it all besides taking care of the kids, and they were going into high school. So they were active. We were running the games. They were rodeoing. That's where I met you. So we were rodeo. I mean, you know, I don't know exactly how I did that, except that I had just put one foot in front of the other. You just got to do it. Just do it. You know, that was it Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I've never been known to plan. I'm not a planner. So I just did it. I didn't sit down with the calendar and have everything wrote down and all that. I'm not that type of person. You just do it. But this is where I don't. A change a change happened during that time. One night I was up at my mom's because she had my brother with her, but I'd try to go up and spend some time with her, and I spend nights up there, and I don't really remember. I had a big decision I had to make, and I don't remember what it was. It had to do with the ranch or something, and I was laying in bed, and I just was looking up, and I says, "Dad, can't you just tell me what to do? I mean, you always told me what to do. Can't you just tell me what to do?" I mean, I know, I just, he was going to talk to me. I don't know. And I heard, not verbally, but I heard in my mind, "You're asking the wrong father."
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. Oh, I'm gonna cry.
I know.
Oh
And
my
I
gosh,
go,
that gave me chills. Okay.
yeah, but that changed my life. That was a turning point in my life. Not,
Wow.
it didn't happen right away, but it was like, okay, you know, and
Wow.
I really had to think about that and whatnot. So, anyway, that was a big turning point. But like I said, I had two purposes, and the purposes were to do the best I could do to keep the ranch going and to give my children every opportunity that they wanted. Okay, I should have. That was probably the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Because they don't, at the time, they don't always know what they want, and so sometimes
Right.
you might be feeding the wrong thing. Okay,
Right.
but irregardless, that was my two purposes. Okay, in life for a long time. Um, but what really happened that changed their lives, I really believe, is they were in high school, and the boys had these two boys. They were friends, and they went to the Lutheran church in Wilbur. Well, my mom was a Lutheran, and so they have a, when you're in seventh and eighth grade, I think it's called confirmation, where you go and you learn what the life of Jesus is and stuff. Well, I went through it, and well, anyway, they were going to go to that, and so their parents said, "Hey, why don't you let them come and stay with us, and they can go?" And I go, "Okay, that's really cool, yeah." And so they did, and then they even offered for Brandy to come because their kids were graduated by, well, not graduated, but later in high school. And so even Brandy went, and I really feel bad because why didn't I think about it and find some way for Fawn to go? Because I really think that has set a precedence in that Brandy and Sarla and Lex's life. I really do, and I wish not that you know Fawn, it didn't hurt Fawn, but I feel bad that I didn't look at it when she was in seventh and eighth grade. So then the other pivotal time was in 2003. And I actually was visiting with Brandy in the car yesterday because I was thinking, why was that so pivotal? Why? I mean, I know why, but why? I was 53 years old, okay? And everybody was gone. They talk about empty nesters. I was an empty nester. The kids were all gone. Brandy was in school at college. Fawn had gotten married and had two kids. And prior to 2003, when Brandy went to college, actually, Fawn came here because she was having marital problems, and we raised her and her two kids for 2 years. So I hadn't really been an empty nester, even though my kids were gone, because I had her grandkids. So then I was doing for them, and Fawn. But in 2003, they were all gone. And then what's interesting, Brandy told me, she laughed and she says, "Do you know that you called me every night when I went to college?" And I go, "No, I don't remember that." Well, anyway, apparently I did. So it was pretty pivotal to be an empty nester, and I remember I was I guess it might have been a state of depression. I don't know. But like I said, no grass grows under my feet. I would find myself prior to June. Okay, I know it was in the spring and it was before June. Sitting on the in the in a chair watching TV, and I never did that. And then I'd hear Steve coming in. Oh shoot, I got to get up. I know. I'm not proud of that. Okay.
No. Right.
Excuse me. Anyway, so I'd make myself look like I'd been busy, but I hadn't been.
Spill some bleach.
Yeah, something. Anyway,
I've been cleaning, I promise.
I don't think he ever knew. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. We never talked about it. But anyway, Brandy, Mom had been taking Brandy to it. It's called Camp Farthest Out in Montana, and it's a non-denominational Christian camp. And since she was either 8 or 10, she thinks she started in 8 when she was 8 years old. Well, anyway, so this was 2003. She was out of school, going to college, and she kept asking me every year, don't you want to go? Because she went through her teen years. She went to camp, was in the teen camp, did a whole bunch of stuff with them. And I'd say, I can't do that. I'm too busy here on the ranch. I can't do that. And so I said, okay, I will. So in 2003, I went to camp with her and I found a purpose. I found my purpose. And since then, I have a purpose. It's still my kids. It's not my grandkids now. I try to be there for them, but I don't try to give them everything they want. That's not
They're too
good.
dumb. They don't,
Yeah.
I mean, they think they want it, but they don't realize, what can come with what, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. There's a reason
Exactly.
that's a saying, right?
Yeah, there is. And I love Garth Brooks' song, Thank the Lord for Unanswered Prayers. Because anyway, so I found my purpose at that camp that year. I started consulting with the right father. So, and Brandy encouraged me then to work at the Riveroo where she was working. And I thought, okay. So I left Steve running the ranch. He could do his own hay. He could do that stuff in the summer. And I went and worked at the Roo and helped them. And then I had my garden. I've always had a garden. And I was trying to think of that. I think I had a garden in 1975, the year we moved down here. I had a garden and I've had one ever since. But I find my garden is my place for peace, where I can get away and I don't have to, and I just dig in the ground. And my mom, she loved to dig in the ground and do flowers and all kinds of stuff. And I guess it's hereditary. So I like my garden, and I've had a garden. And it's not just for me, but I like to, Eli goes out and gets tomatoes. He loves cherry tomatoes. Connor loves the cucumbers, Brandy. I mean, that's what it's for. It's not for me. And I give stuff away, and it's my place of peace, basically. So sorry, I have this cold. I'm getting over it. Okay, I'm trying to get okay. So I was gonna, and what God has shown me is He gave me a vision at one of the camps of a little girl walking down, and there was a bench, and I went to the bench and I kneeled down, and there was another fellow, and I think I knew who he was. He wasn't related to me, but he went also. And so our pastor at the church, because he'd asked the question, what happened at camp? And I said that, and Mom looked at me and she says, you did that. And I go, I did. And she goes, yeah, that was you. And that's when I accepted Jesus in my heart. And I was 10 years old. She said, you were 10. So, I was never alone. I mean, I might have thought I was a loner, but I wasn't. And that's what He showed me. You're never alone. You're not. And He's always there. And I went through a lot of things growing up. I have 2 incidents I was going to talk about, but one was Steve and I were chasing cows up on, it's Dead Horse. It's this mountain. There's 30-mile roads on one side and Cody Butte Road on the other, and the mountains in between. Well, it was in the winter and we had cows out, and we had cows up on top of that. So we rode up there that morning to go get them, and they split on us. And we call it dead horse because the front of that is nothing but bluff, and you can't come down the front on a horse, or even it's even hard to walk down it. Well, anyway, he got his cows and he headed off back down 30 Mile, and I was supposed to get around mine and bring them back, and then follow him down. Well, they cut off and kept going, and I never could get around them. And then it got dark, and I found myself on dead horse where that cliff was, and I was trying to figure out how to get out of there, and it was dark. And finally I says, you know what? I had this horse called Vic. He was nice and steady. He was an old, and I trusted him. And I said, you get us out of here, Vic. And so I let him go. And he just kind of moved himself around, and he finally hit a logging trail or cat trail, and we got on it. And I found myself on the Dead Horse Road, Cody Butte Road, which is the opposite side of where we went up. And there was cow tracks. So he just, he followed the cows out. They knew where they were going. Well, in the meantime, it's dark, it's winter, it's cold, and I'm not in. My dad's having a conniption fit because, yes, he was my to-go-to person, but I was also I don't want to say his favorite, but I was special to him too, because him and we grew up together, basically. He raised me. And so he was panicking because he didn't know where I was. I was up on that mountain and all these things. So, and my cousin came up. He was on the council at the time, and he called out a crew to come look for me. So mom and dad are driving up 30 Mile, hollering in the truck. And I shouldn't say that. I mean, I don't know. People don't know him. But anyway, he was literally crying, and he's probably, mom said Don was crying because something might have happened to me. And he was probably 20 years older than me. So anyway, well, I hit the road, and I was so stiff, I got off and walked for a ways, and my knee was kind of stiff and stuff. And then I come down off, I knew where I was once I hit the Cody Butte Road. So I took a shortcut to hit the main road because I was tired of walking in the snow. And I wrenched my knee a little bit, but that's all that happened. And I hit the main road. And as I was coming into my mom and dad's place, this friend that I know come up in the pickup, and I go, what on earth are you doing here? Because this was probably 9 or 10 at night. And he looked at me and he says, well, what are you doing here? And I go, what do you mean, what am I doing? He says, you're supposed to be lost. And I says, I'm not lost. No way. And that's been the joke. They always say you were lost. I says, no, I was not. I knew exactly where I was.
Right.
I did not know how to get out of there, however. Well, exactly. But this is in winter. It's cold out. It's cold enough that the snow is glistening, so it's cold. I was warm. I never did get cold. Whole time, even when I was riding. And I know that was the Lord. I was never alone. He was with me through that whole thing, and so I know that now. I didn't at the time. Okay. And then the other time, Steve and I were driving, and I fell asleep coming in our road. And we go across umpteen million cattle guards. Okay. Well, I woke up just as the car, and we were driving Lexus car. Something was wrong with our pickup, but was just this fiberglass car. Anyway, all I saw was this post going down in front of me when I woke up, and I just stopped, and Steve wakes up and shakes his head and looks at me. He realizes where we're at, and I said, maybe you should look and see if I'm high centered on this post or whatever. And I was fine. I drove off. Well, that next morning we went and looked, and all there was one tiny little dent in that in the license plate. Nothing happened. One little dent. And then Brandy went to work that morning, and she said she saw my tracks coming along the edge of the cliff or bank, and right along, just like something had just taken the car, and it just, I know that was the Lord again. So I know now that I was never alone from the time I was 10. And well, now I'm not alone. So back to that question on how did I do everything I did? It was through God. It was through the Holy Spirit. And I don't know if we're supposed to give advice. I don't think we're supposed to give advice, but I am going to give some advice to
I would
listeners.
love it. I will take any advice at all from you all day.
Right. To listeners out there, young, old, especially young. Number one, find Jesus, ask him into your heart, because when you do, you won't be walking alone. And there's so many people that feel alone, that are get in depression, and suicide is so high. These things, you don't just ask Jesus in your heart. You won't ever be alone. He sends a helper to live with you. That helps you through everything. And then find a purpose. And this purpose that you find isn't for you, for your gain. It's to give of yourself for somebody else, whether it's your children, whether it's your boss, whatever it is. Your purpose shouldn't be for you. I mean, you're doing it, but you're giving out of yourself. You're giving out of what you have for somebody else. So find that purpose. And then obviously care for your children, pray for them. My purposes were, number one, I was going to honor my dad. Then I was going to care and provide for my children. But then I found CFO, and I had a purpose there too. My Brandy and I try to invite adults and teens and even children to camp, to give them the opportunity to have a life-changing moment. And then my garden, obviously. And now I actually work at the library in Keller, and it's not just a book place. They want it to be a place of activity, especially since COVID. Nobody wants to go out and do anything. And so my purpose there is just to have fun and show joy, and to love people when they come in, say nice things, do nice things, just life should be fun.
Yeah.
You should find joy in life,
Yeah.
Don't let it get you down. So, and above all, to find that relationship with the Lord. So that's my advice. I don't know. That's fast and furious. I don't know how long we're here.
Well, I got to say that, Karlene, that's very moving. And I did not expect that I would tear up during our conversation today. This is it's like, when you settled in there and you started here's my advice to you. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what this camera's doing, but I'm over here just going like this. And, I didn't expect, that. But it struck me. So
that's why I said, I don't think you really know. I
think
you saw what you thought you knew, but that was a result of who I am. What you saw, it reflected who I am.
Sure.
And that's what we are. We reflect who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I knew that you had, I knew that you'd had some experience there, and that I knew at some point when I knew you before, when I knew you when I was younger, when I was coming up and spending summers up there on the place with you guys and stuff. And then I got older, and I got married too, and had kids and all that. And I knew that because there was a big span of time when I wasn't in contact with your family.
Right.
I call that period of my life was sort of like a black hole, kind of, because I really lost.
I mean, you went through a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I really lost touch with a lot of people that were. Sorry, why am I doing this? That were important to me.
Right. I understand. I totally understand. You are going to have I think everybody's going to walk through that, but the thing is, Becky, I don't know where you are, to be honest with you, but I was 53 years old before I realized, what my purpose was, what my real purpose was. I was doing it, but I didn't realize what it was. You know, when
Yeah.
you said you saw me and
True.
you saw this, you saw that, you
Yep.
know, well, that
Yep.
was the Holy Spirit in me,
Yeah.
okay, coming out, but I didn't know
Yeah.
it, not until I was over 53 years old.
Yeah.
So this,
Yeah. Yeah. I
so
knew that something had shifted with you. Like because when I had known you before, and then I took that little kind of that little my gap years, I guess I would call it. Um, and then um, and then kind of came back into your guys' life more actively, more recently.
right,
I saw that shift. I mean, I definitely didn't think, wow, she's a different person. There wasn't some big dramatic, like, now you're all, like you're still your same,
yeah,
hardworking, like down to earth person. But yeah, yeah. So yeah. So anyway, well, yeah, that's kind of surprised me that took me like to that. And it's funny, like this. So this is like the third sort of interview, I guess I've done. The
right,
first two were with Maria, and it's like, why this conversation kind of keeps coming back up like this. And I talked to her too, and I said, I had some time in my life when I was, I, you know, I was, I'm a Christian. Like I've been baptized. Like I've accepted Jesus, and I've been times in my life when I've gone to church, and now I'm in a time in my life when I just don't feel like that's like I'd feel comfortable there. And maybe
right.
and to be honest, I haven't really tried that hard. It's not like I've gone out to try to kind of find a church to go to, because I'm just kind of in a phase where I don't know that I feel like that's real necessary. And I've walked through some stuff um where I've kind of I've been battling, kind of back and forth, like
Right.
never not believing, but also just being questioning, like, come on, like why?
Hmm.
How can this stuff happen? And so, I got my own little personal journey that I'm going on, and it's weird to me. This has to be part of it. There's no way that this podcast stuff and these people that I'm talking to, there's no way that this is not part of it. I was trying to like ignore that maybe it was part of it with Maria, but now I'm talking to you, and then I started crying first. So I had no idea I was going to do that, and I'm like, okay, I hear you, God. Like I hear you.
Yeah.
We'll work it out. Like I said to Maria, he's a big enough God that he can just be like, all right, you do you, and I'm still here. Like you said, I'm not alone.
Yep.
But yeah. So
It doesn't.
anyway, wow.
You don't. You might not be walking where he wanted you to walk,
Sure.
or his choice, but he's going
Yeah.
to go with you through it.
Yeah.
And
Funny how
that's
our
what.
kids do that too. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But he's going to go with you through it. He's
Yeah.
not just going to say, "Oh, I'll see you when you come back." It doesn't work
Right.
that way. It doesn't
Exactly.
work that way.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. Yeah. So I had a couple, I don't want to interrupt
No,
what
no,
you
no,
had
no,
to say.
no. That's
I
all I
have
had
a
wrote
couple
down.
sort of follow-up questions,
Okay,
if that's okay.
that's fine.
So, people that have been up there on your play, I know a lot of people have been up there on that ranch.
Right.
When you come in, you do the switchbacks, you come up and you hit that first set of like sort of hay fields when you kind of get into that basin there.
Hmm.
There's that little house. And for some reason, I don't know why I have this in my head. For some reason, I felt like someone told me that that's the house you lived in when you were a little kid, like right there when you first hit that basin. Is that
No,
true?
no,
Okay.
no. I never um, lived down here till 75.
Okay.
I lived up at 30 Mile. And did you ever go up to, our upper ranch when we'd move cows? And so we always called it the upper ranch.
Yeah, where your
Where
mom
my
lived.
mom lived. Okay, that's
Yeah.
where I was raised. I was raised
Okay.
there. And then my
Gotcha.
dad purchased this property with this logging outfit down here and started the
Okay.
hay fields and all that when he had cows. And then when we moved back, Steve and I lived here, and then I've been here ever since.
So that house there that the kids are living in now, Sarah and Melissa are living in that house now, right? That's down there up by that bay, and that was built when you and Steve got married?
No, that was built in 1980 when Sarah was a baby. We
Oh,
lived, when you go to the cabins,
yeah.
Down there's that big blue house up on the hill, kind of
Oh, up
blue.
on the hill. Okay.
Yeah. We lived in that for 2 years. And so when Lex was born, we moved over here, and there was another little house down past where the ostriches are, or the ostrich barns attached to that little house.
Yeah.
That's where we lived. And then in 1980, well, then Dad started building the house that Sarah and Melissa lived in. It was built in 1980, and we moved into
Okay.
that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Yeah. Because I knew
now,
there was another little house closer to the water from that one.
right, that was
Yeah.
the, yeah. Those two houses there were actually moved in by barge when they raised the dam. When the dam was put in, they moved
Okay.
houses out, and my dad
Right.
picked them up and moved them in by barge.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
from from that would they would have been flooded by the dam.
yeah. So it was in the 30s, I think. Isn't that when
Yeah.
the dam was built? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were
Hmm.
moved in the 30s.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Were they just further down down into that canyon, or were they like
I
from?
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got them, where they got them. I just know that I was told that's where they came from,
Oh,
and they
interesting.
moved them up by barge. That's all I know. I don't have
Okay.
any idea how he did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Oh, there's a will, there's a way, I guess.
Yep.
So then so then your dad built those cabins.
Yeah. He built. Yes, he built all of them actually. Yeah. Um, he hand built the one where we that's ours, and he hand built another one or another two, and then he had some put where they're prefabbed, I guess, and put together. He built
Okay.
them, but they weren't actually logs. They were kits put together. But
Gotcha.
yeah, no, he did them. He did them all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And then where did you go to college?
Oh well, I went my first year. I went to Whitworth, and yeah, it wasn't really my calling. Anyway, and then I know. Oh, my friends were at WSU, and then my cousin who convinced me to go to Whitworth. After I went there, she was they moved. She got married and left the year I went there, and then I said something to her, and she says, "Oh well, yeah, but we always went to WSU every weekend." I go, "Well, thanks a lot." No, for telling me that. So then I transferred to WSU, and I graduated from there.
Okay.
So
And what was your major? What's your degree?
home economics, business in home economics
Okay.
and stuff. And I was going to become a dietitian. So that was part of it.
Mhm.
Part of my dad's me not coming back to the ranch because I mean, dietitians aren't going to be working on a ranch.
Right.
So, but then I changed my major. Well, I didn't really, I did. I went into nursing. Um, After I graduated, took some classes for one anyway, not nursing in hospitals, but the ones that go out to schools, and I mean, I forget what it was called, that kind of nursing program. But then
Okay.
I didn't. My horse
Yeah.
bucked me off. I broke my shoulder, and that ended that. So
Wow.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
That'll put the kibosh on lots of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you said you didn't have a lot of childhood memories, but you said that horses raised you.
they did.
Um, can you tell me about, do you have any memories about any particular horse or horses that you had
Oh
when you
yeah,
were a kid?
yeah. My first horse was a half Shetland. I called him Scout. He was a Pinto, and I remember I always wanted a horse. I don't remember how old I was, but we went into Spokane, and my aunt was a secretary. She worked at Kinman's, and we were up there. And I remember going out on the street. Dad say, "Hey, let's go down" or something. I went out, and there was a horse trailer there when he was in it. So that was my first horse. He surprised me with it, and I had him up until even when I went through other horses, I still kept him. And I used to, because he was a Pinto, I used to have play cowboys and Indians, and I could teach him he'd rear up for me, and paw the air, and I mean, he'd do all kinds of stuff, and I just had a lot of fun on him. But he was an ornery thing. He put me in the ground many times. One
I had a
time I
little
got,
pony.
yeah, one time my dad had a mill there. Anyway, we had this sawdust pile, and he put me in that sawdust pile, and I was done with him. And and there was a friend of my dad's was there, and he says, nope, 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 and he put me back on top of the horse, and I had to ride him again. But anyway, so I mean, yeah, I have memories, those kind of memories with my horses, all kinds, but they were my go-to friends. I could talk to them. Like if anything was going wrong, I could talk to them. I mean, I just love horses.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably remember a little bit enough to know, well, came up there for some summers to kind of get away from
Right.
my situation, you
Yeah.
know, but and I brought my horses
Yeah.
and but yeah, I totally relate to that because I remember plenty of times just going down to the barn and that my horse, it'd be in the wintertime or something. If my horse was in a stall, I'd be in there laying down and I just go in there and just lay on him and pet him. And it's funny how they're such a big animal but yet there's something about the soul of a horse, you know?
There is. I'm gonna. This has been a question that I've had. We had a storyteller, excuse me, come about a month ago to our library to tell native stories from the way back when. Okay, you know how Moses said, told the Israelites never forget the Red Sea and what happened. Well, that's what he was brought up with these stories, and they would tell. Even Chief Jim James, who was the last chief of the Sampuel, even told him, "Don't change the stories. Keep everything." And he was telling the story, I think, of beginning when time began, to be honest with you, with them, and how animals and humans were on the same level and they could communicate with each other. And then something happened and that changed where man became, and something broke that. And the way he was talking, it was like he was talking about Coyote, and where Coyote had the most authority or something. And then, well, then he fell out of grace and then he lost that authority. And then it was almost like he was mimicking Satan, to be honest with you. I mean, in the story.
Yeah,
But, and so they lost that communication. And so I've been thinking about that. But don't you feel, I think we communicate with animals. I don't think they can't talk to us and we can't talk to them, but we, through the soul, I do believe we have a communication with animals. I really do.
I believe that fully. I
Yeah.
absolutely, I know that I believe that we communicate with animals through energy, through whatever our energy is.
I think it's our feelings. You
Yep.
know, my sister had well, like I told you, she's a juvenile diabetic, and she would have low blood sugars. I mean, she could get clear down to like 28 when most comatose. Okay. And they had a cat. I forget the name of the cat, but one time she was in and out of being comatose, and he literally bit her and bit her and bit her until she woke up and took some sugar, got sugar, or her. I mean, okay, you can't tell me that's not. Yeah,
Yeah.
that cat took
Yeah.
care of her. He brought her back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I fully, yeah, absolutely. Like you told that story about Vic. You're like, okay, Vic, here you go.
yeah,
Just get me out of here.
yeah.
And Vic was probably just waiting around going, hey, Karlene, when are you going to let me get us out of this?
Exactly.
He's
Or
like,
like,
okay, I'll do what you say.
I really don't want to walk down that or take, go over that log, and I don't want to
Yeah.
go that direction, and yeah,
Yeah.
because it was slick. I mean, yeah, it was
Yeah.
not good. Yeah, I really do think, I felt so bad. The last horse that I had was Brandy's horse. We called him the Black, and he hadn't ate for 2 or 3 days, and I knew he had a twisted. I just felt like he had a twisted gut. Anyway, and it was just so sad because I would just give him a hug, and because there was nothing I could do. I mean, you can go to the vet, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. And it was like I was saying goodbye to him, but he just had, you could just look in his eyes, and there was just a connection.
Yeah. Yep.
It was
Yep.
like goodbye. I felt so
Yeah.
bad, and I really haven't had another horse that close since, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. 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 It's hard to be around them, and it's hard to lose the humans, but it's hard to lose the animals too.
It is. It is.
And I
And
think
I,
people don't get that about people in agriculture, men, women, doesn't matter. Um, that I think that they have a real special feel for those animals. Like they have a real special connection. And it's counterintuitive, I think, to people that don't understand it or that aren't in that lifestyle because they think, well, I know this, we're going to kill them because we're going to eat them, right? Like,
right.
I know that we've got these heifers out here, we've got these cows out here, we're going to breed them, and they're part of a business, and but I don't think people understand and appreciate how much people in cattle business or raising hogs or whatever it is care about this, like those animals
No,
on a
I don't think.
level,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
And
my grandchildren. I mean, look how much they love Doctor. I mean,
I know. I love that story so much with that
you know,
bull. Yeah,
yeah. I
which
mean,
I
they
I
were
want to
raised.
talk to you about all that too, those bulls and those bucking bulls and all that. But yeah, I know. I share that video so many times with, with you've seen those kids out there sitting on that bull, and then it's so neat that you guys rested him there on that place, Probably one of the very few bulls that you kept, right? Because I mean, you
Oh yeah,
guys were
he
in the
was.
business to like
Yeah, he
raise them
was.
and sell them.
I think we actually had dog face till the end too, and then our Brahma bull, red. We had him,
Uh-huh.
the original Brahma bull. You
Yeah,
know,
the one, was he the sire? Because correct me if I'm wrong, please. But it
Mhm.
all sort of started between Steve and Ralph McLean, right? And did they have Keller Days together, or
Well,
was
that's
Keller
where.
Days the first one?
Yes, but yeah, we okay. My dad raised Charlet, okay,
Right.
and then we got he bought some Red Angus bulls to cross instead of Black Angus. He always tried to do different things. Like my dad and I believe it was Glenn Anderson and Wilbur or Govan were the first two breeders of Charlet in our area. I mean, everything was Hereford, and so it was a big change. People they thought they were, yeah, they didn't. I think they even talked about not letting Dad put the Charlet on the range because they're not normal. It's everything. So then he got Red Angus instead of Black Angus to cross on them. Well, I don't know where we come up with the idea. I think we were researching, and the Brahma cross with the reds, the Brangus, is a good cross. It brings out the good qualities. Okay, so then that's why we went and got a Brahma bull, and originally it was to cross with the Branga to the Red Angus, and then we'd get a Brangus and then put them on the Charlet, and then we'd get your Angus part, so you'd get the marbling, and you have the size of the Charlet, and then you have the Brahma, which is the strength, all kinds of for bugs and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then, but we had these bulls that we couldn't do anything with. Okay, and their attitude wasn't the most friendly.
Right.
So then that's how Steve and Ralph got together. I think we had three of them. And Ralph says, well, come and let me buck them and stuff. So that's how that started. Yeah, it did start with Ralph. Yeah. And Keller Days was the first. He wasn't the first bull. I'm not sure. There was three names for him. Steve probably remembers them. But he was the first real bucker that we got, that really bucked. And the most
Uh-huh.
famous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Started it. Yeah.
Yeah. He was the
So,
first one that was at all the rodeos and that people started
right.
talking
Yeah.
about. Wow.
Yeah.
Because I remember just the difference in the caliber of those bulls that Ralph and Steve were bringing onto the scene was so different from what anybody'd ever seen. Like
Right.
these bulls, Dogface, one of them too. He's one of the pioneers too.
Right.
I remember watching that bull buck and just seeing watching him just clear the bucking chutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was on springs and just explode out of there. I'd never seen anything buck like that, and that no one could hang on to him for the longest time. Like I guess the
No.
Cowboys finally kind of caught up with them
Yeah, he
to
was ridden a few
realize.
times, but yeah, he was. And what's interesting about Dogface, most people don't know. We had a friend in Inchalim, Pete Holford, that raised cattle, and he would come over and get bulls from us to put on his cows. And Dogface was one of those bulls, and so he took him as a 2 or 3 year old, I think, and he had used him for 2 years, and then we got him back because then we wanted to buck him, because and so he was fairly old when he first started to buck, and
Huh.
and you could go out if as long as you weren't in the rodeo arena. If you were just out wherever, you could take him grain. Pete used to grain him every winter.
Huh.
He'd walk out and give him grain, and so we could too, but not in the arena.
Right.
You don't do nothing in the arena.
Right. Like even Love Doctor, I guess, was like, you were like,
yeah.
you need,
No.
Steve was saying, you got to give him a good 20, 30 minutes to kind of calm down after you buck
Yeah.
him before you're not going to go in there and scratch him on the forehead after he just put somebody in the dirt.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, he was. But I remember there was one summer that Donnie bucked Dogface 100 times.
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of outs for a bull in a short period of time. I mean, over probably 4 months. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Expect that bull to do that.
Yeah.
So
No
that
kidding.
was amazing.
Yeah. No kidding. That's awesome. Um, yeah. And then, so there were the bulls. And then tell me, you alluded to it a little. You mentioned the ostrich barn.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that kind of going down, and feel like I remember a story about how when they showed up there on the place, and one of them got out.
Yeah, they got out several times. Yeah.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So what was the thought process behind that?
Well,
What was the ostrich idea?
well, at that time when we got into it, we had some friends in Creston that were raising them, and he was Fawn's basketball coach. She was in junior high basketball, so we got to know him. So we went out there, and he was obviously trying to get businesses around him, sell birds and stuff. And so we decided we'd go ahead and try it. Another avenue to raise money. So that's how that started. And we did really well for the first, I don't know, 5 years maybe. But the ostrich business is the people that were raising the birds wanted like $20 a pound for their meat. Yes, it was low cholesterol, no fat. It was good for you, but you can't just jump into a business like that. And, so they kind of killed themselves. And so, it lasted for us about 5. It probably lasted for Ted a lot longer because he started sooner, But ostriches are they're not the easiest birds to handle either. To move them, you have to move them backwards because you cannot stand in front of them because they have that toe is very sharp. And if that we never got hurt, but we've heard stories of where they had literally ripped the chest of people open, the skin, because of that. They got in front of them. So you had to be really careful. You had to make sure that you had the wings and you stayed on the side and you backed them up. If you backed them up, they didn't have any balance and you could do what you wanted with them. But they were strong. It wasn't really easy to do that.
Yeah. I remember Steve coming in with his hands all bloody one time because they got a hold of him, just pecked him on the
Yeah, oh
hand.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember going out there to that barn and those weird things would be like with their wings out and they're dancing around and
Oh
they're like
yeah.
hitting their head. They would like swing their long neck around and hit their head on either
Yeah.
face of either wing and make that like thumping weird
That was
noise.
the male telling you that he's pretty proud of himself.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's fine, buddy. I don't need to come anywhere near you.
Yeah.
I get the message loud and clear.
Yeah, well, the females weren't that mean unless you tried to get their eggs.
Oh, which is you had to do that.
We had to do that. They would
Yeah.
literally come running, and you better be. And my kids were not the nicest kids, so to speak. I mean, they were, but they weren't. So they would have friends come and they'd try to tell them, go get that egg,
Oh God, yeah, that's entertainment for
I
days.
know. So these kids that go through the fence to get the egg, and then here comes the female, and
Yeah.
oh, you guys, you're going to get somebody hurt,
You're like, yeah, that's the idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
I mean,
funny.
yeah, it is. But no, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I raised one year, I had 60 of them in that little barn down there. You know,
Wow.
we'd hatch our own eggs and,
Right.
you know, and I raised them. It was a lot of work. I
I
forgot
remember
about
that you
all
sort of
that.
converted that one of those that house into like an incubator kind of
Yep. We had an
uh
incubator. Yep.
yeah.
And you'd have to candle eggs every day and move them and then put them in the hatcher and then help them hatch and then teach them how to eat. And oh, yeah,
Oh wow.
I forgot about that. That was a very time consuming 5 years,
Yeah. A
whatever it
lot of
was.
work.
I don't know how long it was. Oh, it was because you had to keep it clean. You
Yeah.
know, chickens, they're bigger than chickens.
And chickens are gross.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
but very
Yeah.
good for your garden.
Yeah, that guy, look on the bright side. You had some great fertilizer
Yeah.
probably. Yeah. So so there's that ranch there that your dad bought. How many acres was that? And it just
Well, altogether, it was about 3,500.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Including up where your mom lives. Are you
No, it
including
was
that or
35. No,
just down
no,
in that
she just
basin?
has 160 acres there, I think she had.
Okay.
Yeah, and stuff.
Okay.
But I did forget, I was going to tell you, I had this in here and I forgot. But when you brought up that purchase, when I talked to you about my dad being honesty, this is what really set a precedence in me on honesty. He was well, he was enrolled in Native Indian, Colville Indian. Well, he was on the council, which is their business. They do all their business and stuff. He was one of the councilmen, and there was a ranch next to ours, adjacent to it, with probably the same amount of acreage, or at least 2,000 acres, came up for sale. And the guy came to my dad and offered it to him. And he
Wow.
said, "No, I represent the Colville tribe, and you need to offer it to them first."
Oh.
And he told them, "If you don't buy it, I will." I wish he wouldn't have said that, but because maybe they wouldn't have bought it. But it's kind of like enticing people to, anyway, because there was timber on it and he knew he could log the timber and pay for the land. So he knew it wasn't going to really, it was a doable thing, but they purchased it. But that's honesty. He could have said, "Okay, I'll buy it." But he
Right.
didn't. He felt like he had to honor, because he represented them, he had to honor their position first. So, and
Yeah.
that really set a precedence on honesty with me, I think,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
growing up.
he
Yeah.
could have done that and made the money and
Yep.
not never looked back, and no one could have really faulted him for it, I guess.
No.
But yeah, good for him that he was,
Yeah.
he had enough loyalty to that tribe to do that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and so let me see. I was kind of trying to make some notes here.
Okay, that's fine.
Um, when we when we um when we were talking about like the time to make this time to have this conversation, you had said, well, let me check and make sure the grandkids don't have something going. And I love that so much because I see how involved you are with those kids down there. And it blows my mind because I hear Melissa talk about like, and I remember this with Lex and Sarl and Fawn and Brandy going to Wilbur, going all their basketball games in
Yeah.
Wilbur. Well, Wilbur's not close.
No, it's an hour away.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
And
that's when you cross the ferry.
right.
So
And if you
right
don't get the
now,
ferry, which it seems like it's down all the time since they put that
well,
new one in there.
it is down. That's what I was going to tell you, and it might be down up to 2 months. And we're in the middle of winter, and so when we go now, we have to go to Grand Coulee. I mean, we have to go over Manila Creek, over a
Yeah.
pass, and
Yeah.
then on. So it is, yeah. This winter is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Carl
Yeah.
just
Without
left
that
it.
ferry moving.
Right. He left. Bucky has a game. He just started basketball in Creston. So Sarl left at 7 this morning with Bucky to go to take him to his basketball game. That's 2 hours from when they
Yeah.
left here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. That was a part I remember being a kid and knowing that those kids were all in their sports and then they were rodeoing and stuff too. And you guys had that ranch to run and all those cows and you got to put hay up, and there's timing involved in putting up hay for sure.
Yeah.
And bringing cows down and doing all that stuff. And I always was just in awe. I was like, I don't know how those Katiches, I think they stretch the days. Somehow you get like 32 out of the 24 hours. I don't know how you do it. I guess maybe you just didn't sleep. I don't really know.
I don't know.
But
Well, you brought that up, and it just brought back a memory. There was one time when we were baling hay, and so the boys and you were, well, they all had a rodeo at Clarkston. He used to go to that junior rodeo, and so Steve took them. Okay, so I stayed home to bale hay. I don't like pulling a horse trailer, so never did. Anyway, so I was baling hay. Well, the lightning came in that night. Well, yeah, and it was hitting all around us, and we had a straw stack too, off to the side. Well, I think I called Nikki because Nikki wasn't rodeo and she was done with junior rodeo, so she came over, and I think we had like 4 fires around us that were lightning because it was striking all around us. Well, when the pumper trucks finally got down here, Nikki and I were beating the flames down to keep them from getting to the straw stack. Okay, and the lightning was going on, and so this pumper truck comes up, the guy, and he looks at us and he says, "I think you two ladies should not be using those shovels, because if like if lightning would have struck close enough and we had the shovel in the ground and wood as a conductor, we might have been hot, so to speak." Nikki
oh
and
my
I
God.
looked at each other and we threw the shovels. I mean, we didn't think about that at the time. We were just digging dirt and throwing it on the flames because they were coming towards the straw stack. Anyway,
Right.
I know, but they, yeah,
Trying to put your fire line in there. You don't even think
exactly.
about
So,
that.
I mean, that was like spreading us thin. Trust me.
Yeah,
There
I
were times
bet.
when we were spread thin between Steve and I to do everything. So,
Yeah. 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 I bet that you was a lot of divide and conquer back in those days.
yeah, it was.
You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
just it wasn't just me. It was him and us. Him and I together, and
Yeah.
mom and dad would watch the little kids. When we'd be out chasing cows,
Yeah.
they'd babysit. So I mean,
Right.
we had help.
Yeah. 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 That's important. And it was also like remarkable to me how your dad was such a big influence on you, but also that you got older and you recognized, what your mom must have gone through. And I think
Yeah,
that's
I
a
did.
big testament to your mom, really, that I mean, that was a lot of stuff going on around you as a kid that you didn't understand or know about, you know?
Right.
And then you become a mom and a grandma and you look back and you go, wow, that must have been really hard. But the fact that you were able to sort of get out of that and without really knowing what your mom was going through until you got older, I think that says a lot about your mom too.
It does.
Personally, that she was able to at least not put that on you, or maybe your dad kind of came around and like you were his little buddy, and you were the firstborn and you were his little buddy. I love to hear that because that I had that relationship with my dad. Like he,
Right. Yeah.
I was kind of his little buddy, and I was the one kid that I wasn't the oldest, but I was the kid that just was obsessed with horses and the rodeo and all that stuff. So he and I spent so many weekends together, and I know for sure, I know for a fact that um that ranch up there and that place meant a lot to my dad. He spent, he just, and it means a lot to me. Like I come up over that hill and I see that river, coming up out of Wilbur, and getting ready to go
Yeah.
down the Keller grade there. And you see that river and you're just like, oh, I'm almost home,
Yeah.
which is weird because I never lived there. I never lived
Right.
there. But, your family's always been just so
But
important to me.
you have the good memories there, and it
I
was a time
do.
with your dad. And I think that's you and your dad love the same thing.
Yep.
You have that connection. You know, it doesn't mean you weren't connected to other, doesn't mean you're not. But that's
Sure.
what my dad and we love the same thing. We love the outdoors.
Yep.
You know, he was always outdoors. I mean, you know, and yeah, I think they are soulish connections, even with people. You get them,
Yeah.
not just with animals, but with
Oh
people.
yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so I don't know how a lot of people don't know it, but when my dad, he was 49 and he had a heart attack and it was up
Down
there on your
here,
place.
yeah, well, yeah, down next to the water. I remember. I
Yeah. And
remember.
then yeah, so you were there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And then what did you guys had to
we
call at the
called.
time?
We had to call. Did we bring the helicopter in, or
Yeah.
did? Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, we hit Heart Flight ended up coming in. Yeah,
Yeah. And at the time Nikki was a paramedic there, right?
for
In
Nespelem, I
Keller
think. Yeah,
or for Nespelum. So she ended up
yeah,
showing up in the ambulance. Is
yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I believe
And then
so.
yeah, because I think I remember Dad telling me like he didn't want to take his shirt off because he's so modest. He didn't want to take his shirt off, and Nikki's like, knock it off, John. Like this is not
Yeah,
time for modesty.
yeah.
And then yeah, stuck him in the helicopter, got him to Spokane. And then good old Steve sneaking beer into him in the
Oh, that
hospital.
I didn't know or remember.
Yeah, I'm telling on Steve right now. Yeah. He was like, yeah, come break me out of here. And Steve's like, don't worry, John. He come sneaking in there with a beer from my dad.
That doesn't surprise me.
Not at all.
No.
I'm sure my dad would have returned the favor to him.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, so I know I'm like, gosh, I'm 50. And then I think like, gosh, my dad was 49 and I thought he was so old.
Yeah, we're
He had the
not.
heart attack and I'm like, he wasn't that old, really.
Yeah. No, he
So
wasn't. He was young. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he was a stressor. Yeah, he was a stressor. but but anyway, so yeah, let's see. What else would I have? I think that's about all the questions I had that I could think of. I was trying to take notes as we were talking and
Okay,
thinking
it's no
about some
biggie.
stuff to
Yeah.
ask. Did you um have anything else that you
I don't think so. I think I brought them up as they came to my mind.
good, good. If
Just
you
the
think of
story.
something else, we can certainly do part two if you think of something
Mhm.
else. But yeah, I really, again, I cannot tell you how much I just appreciate you taking the time to do this. I feel so honored that you trusted me enough to do this. And yeah, I
Oh,
I learned lots of new stuff about you that I've been wanting to do this for a long
yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
glad I finally,
No, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I knew it was important that I do it after I said, okay, I think this is important. I
yeah,
need to do this,
yeah,
and I said,
yeah,
okay, I will. So,
yeah. And like you were
so
saying with the tribe, coming to the library, there's power in people's stories.
there is. Yep.
There's power in people's stories, and who knows who could, get something from what your story is, and yeah, so appreciate you taking that step out
Yeah.
of
It
your
just,
comfort zone.
we just have people come in now. And like I said, people come and do exercise twice a week and I mean, 2 or 3 people, um, and we just visit, and we're doing a couple adult art things, diamond printing. Have you ever heard of that?
Is that where you put the little diamond things on
Yeah.
the
Yeah. And
like
it
like a
makes
paint by
designs.
number kind of?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I've
And
seen those. Those are
and
neat.
that's fun. And some of them are having, oh, this is really fun, and
Yeah.
they're having, I mean, these are older people, elderly people.
Yeah.
And then I have one lady that's 80 years old, and she's been doing, it's called pla- pla- plastic matting, but it's yarn on little plastic squares, and you make stuff. And so I'm really enjoying that. I made some Christmas ornaments,
Oh,
and
fun.
and then a coaster. She told, okay, this is funny. Okay, I'm still headstrong. Okay, that hasn't changed.
Of
I
course
get
not. I hope it never does.
I get an idea, and I need to do this idea. I mean, you can tell me maybe you should do this first. No, 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 I need to do this. So, I have these ornaments I think we should make. And she says you should do a coaster first, which is just a little square going back and forth. That's not fun. It doesn't look fun to me doing this little square. Okay, by the time I got done with 2 or 3 ornaments, I went to her and I says, I think I should do the coaster now and learn how to do this so I don't have to keep ripping everything out, you know, because
That's funny.
you go up and down when you go one way and then down and up when you go the other way. So you switch back and forth. Well, I was mixing them all up because I didn't do the coaster. When you do the coaster, it's a repetition. You get it upstairs. And so I did my coaster. Now I'm doing hearts. So
Good. You graduated.
I graduated.
It's like,
and I go, she did this one heart and the lines are going kind of vertical. And I says, that looks cool. She says, you're not ready.
young grasshopper.
Yep. But she's 80 and she's been doing this for over 30 years. And so, I mean, she's
That's
makes
really great
neat stuff, but she's having fun coming, teaching it, and doing, so it's bringing people out and they're enjoying life again, basically.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I feel the library thing is for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good to get people out. Like you said, during COVID, everybody just got to be such shut-ins.
Yeah.
And it's good to get back out and reconnect, because humans are herd animals. Like we need that
We do.
to get out,
And they don't want to after COVID. I mean, they're happy just sitting in front of the TV. They're happy on their phone playing games. They're missing so much of life.
Yeah. My daughter was never like that. My daughter was always like outside, digging in the dirt, catching bugs, building forts, doing all sorts of stuff, playing with the animals and doing all that stuff. And she never got into riding horses or anything really. But she was, always like out being active and zooming around. And then, COVID hit. And that kid now, she could just stay in her room all day and just be perfectly happy. And I'm just like, wow,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Kind
It
of,
really
I
is.
don't understand it, but yeah. And but now then the seasons are bad right now. So, I mean, even I feel like, oh, I'm just can't be on my horses. It's so cold. The roads are bad. I can't even haul out to go ride anywhere. And it's just dangerous to be on your horse right now. I mean,
yeah.
So they're all out there in cozy little blankets, that are frozen, icicles
you need
in
to
there.
find some kind of a craft. No.
I know. I do. I have lots of crafts. I do know how to sew. And your coaster story reminded me of when I learned, my grandma taught me how to crochet.
Oh,
And when
okay.
I was really little, and she and I I'd go to and spend, time at their house. They lived in West Richland, and I'd go spend time with them, and I would crochet and I would do the plastic mat stuff, with my grandma, and she was always doing something crafty.
Yeah.
And she was like the same thing. You're not ready. Do you know how many like crocheted pot holders I made when I was learning? She's like, just do these little pot. Okay, good job. To do another one. And I was like, I want to make like, a blanket or whatever. And she's just like, yeah, you're not ready.
I know.
But yeah, my grandparents, I can't even say good. My grandparents are my gold standard.
Yep.
Like I watched them, the way they communicated, the way they loved each other, the way they served each other. They were married for 64 years when my grandma died. And yeah, and it was just funny, like watching them. I mean, not funny, but it was just really neat to watch them. And as an adult, I look back, I kind of took all that for granted when I was a little kid, because I didn't know what any of that was about. Well, now we got kids, I've been married and divorced, and and I see like that's gold right there, that what they had, and that they, that I was able to at least have some of their influence in my life. I was really grateful for that. So what you're doing with your grandkids and all the time that you're spending with them and your kids, and you know, definitely it's leaving a mark for sure on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so. And I believe that's our purpose, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
So
Absolutely. Good. Well, Karlene, thank you.
you're
Thank you,
welcome.
thank you,
Thank
thank you
you.
so very much. And tell Steve I said hi
Okay.
and
He's
and
he actually got up this morning and went with Sorrel. So he's
oh
watching
good.
he's watching Bucky play basketball. Or he might be, I don't know what time it is. But anyway,
Yeah. It's getting close to 10.
yeah.
So
So he's
yeah,
watching him play right now. So I
good.
was going to, but Brandy and Brandy and I are doing a this Sunday we're having they do Texas Hold'em and so we do I do the food and she does the other stuff in a bingo and the guys that come and play Texas Hold'em they think they need banana bread as a because they draw they get different things and one of them's banana bread and so she has to make banana bread
That's a
today.
no-brainer, of course.
Right and then she
Yeah,
wants
it
me to
makes
make
perfect sense.
almond roca and we didn't want to leave here at 7 in the morning and then
Yeah.
go take 2 hours. So we got home here at 9 last night from Spokane. So
Wow.
anyway, we did. So I didn't go to Buck's game this morning, but he'll live. That's how I.
He'll be all right.
He'll be all
He'll be
right.
all right. It's not like you won't be at every other one.
Exactly. I'll make
Huh.
the others.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, enjoy your day. Good luck with the banana bread.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll be seeing you this summer or
Okay.
but if you think of anything and you want to do a part two, I'd love it.
Okay.
I'd
All
love it a
right.
lot. All right. Well, you take good care,
You
Carlene.
too.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you much, Becky. Love
All
you.
right. I love you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.